Okay, I hope that everyone from yesterday's join us also. It will be really, really nice if what I said yesterday was enough interesting for you guys to join us today. Of course, today will be more technical training. So this will give you a little more information in depth how to configure and what to do. For today, we have, I think I will try to squeeze in 1 hour, guys. I hope I will be able to, because today we will be talking a lot of different stuff and a little bit more into depth of the configuration. So there will be a little more, I think, from at least for technical point of view, a little more interesting thing. Also, guys, from what I know, this type of webinar will be also available on our website, or you will be able to look at it later on as the history of our webinars. So this part will be also for you if, for example, in next 2 months or next month, you want to program it for the first time, this type of modules, you will be able to go back and see step by step of the configuration. Okay, I see a lot of guys from around the world. So yeah, I'm quite happy to see you guys all. Okay, so my name is Krzysztof Wojciechowski, and I will be presenting for you our technical training for GPRS-A, GSM-X, and INT-GSM modules. This is our communication modules for our panel, but not only, also for the third-party modules. We will be talking about how to configure it, how to program it. Yeah, and of course, with me there is Łukasz Woźniak, who will be helping me with all the chat and all the questions. So guys, if you have any kind of question related to this subject or not, but of course I prefer if it's related, just ask on chat. He will try to answer you later on these questions. Of course, at the end, I will try to talk about a little bit of the few of them, at least. Will depend how much time do we have and how many questions there are. Yeah. So if you are ready, if you are with your coffee and you're ready to go, let's jump in. One more thing, on the right bottom corner, you have a hand icon. So if you want to said something to us, or I should be louder or more quiet, or whatever, something is wrong with the communication, you can always raise a hand or send us information that everything works fine or not. Depends on how you like. Okay, guys, so without further ado, let's start this webinar. So today we will mostly focus on GXSoft. So this software, what we see in here, this is almost the same as, at least the looks and design is almost the same as the Perfecta. So if you join us on our webinar for the Perfecta, most things are quite similar, at least as the, of course, difference between the GSM communication module and Perfecta panel is different. But in general, the idea and placement of the options are quite similar. So both of them should be quite easy for you to understand if you know one or the other. But the idea was in general that on the left side of the menu, we have full list, the tree of the options that we have in here, as you see, that give you all the options for the configuration. Of course, there are more or less created that they go from top to bottom, giving you as much possibility to just go from top to the bottom and go through every single option that you want to configure. On the top, we have information about the panel. So I'm right now connected to the GPRS-A version 1.03 with the date of the firmware. Information about GSM connection right now. I put in SIM card inside to have all the connections done. I will show you how to do it later on. I have time in the module. So right now is 23rd of April. So of course you can set time. If you want, you can press this button and send time from your panel to module. On the right side, we have all the information regarding the connection type. So we are connected with the COM3. Download data from module and upload data from module. Test transmission if you want to start it. Information about the status of the system. And of course, many of the software of the GX Soft, like open project, save as, etc., but also configuration of the GX Soft, but also configuration of the connection. So before we start and we are able to connect with the panel, right now I disconnect from the panel, we are using this type of cable. I will show you in 2 seconds. So we are using USB-RS cable for the communication. We are using this 3-pin plug. I'm not sure if you see it properly. With TTL, this is very important. And we plug it in the middle of the module. So we have a connection, hardware connection. If we want to configure how to connect, we can go in this menu, connection, and put a module key and choose a COM port. If you don't know how to choose which COM port is assigned to USB cable, you can always go in the Windows, right button on the Start option, go to Device Manager. My Windows is Polish version, so I won't be able to show you in English, but this is the Device Manager. And in here you will find a ports, COM LPT, and USB serial port COM3. This is very important because in some cases, Windows is able to assign different COM ports depending on where you plug in the USB cable. This is just done by the Windows, so we don't have any kind of possibility to solve this. So if you don't see any connection in here, just check it, that is COM3, perfect, and then OK. Of course, if you want to connect remotely by the SATL server, after, of course, your configuration, you can do it by putting all the information about email and ID in here. And of course, if you want a direct remote connection, you can always use this option. But we are connected locally, so we are using COM3 in this case. So OK, and connect. Every single time when you try to connect with the panel, you will receive information that the connection established, read data from module. I will strongly advise to do always yes, because if someone else configure it between your configuration and you said no and change something and send this information, then you will have then you can override the previous configuration. So the best idea will be always to stick with read information that you have the latest one from the module and then change them. Of course, it depends if you want to use a backup configuration and you just want to upload the backup, you said no, but in general, I will always advise yes to have the latest one. Okay, I see, please, no audio. Okay, guys, do you hear me? Or is there any kind of problem with my audio? I would like to confirm it before we start. Okay, so person Emmanuel from Italy, I think this is on your side, no audio, so please please check what is wrong. Rest of guys have audio, so it should be fine. Try to solve it on your side, okay? Alrighty, so if you have full communication, you have this information in here, also the blinking icon that there is a working communication with the module. So first part of it is the project. But before we go there, I will say one thing. Almost everything what I'm describing in here is about the same between the GPRS and GSM-X. So this configuration is more or less exactly the same. Nothing changed. Of course, GPRS have few unique configuration stuff. GSM-X have also few unique, like dual path, etc., or ETHM module on board. But nevertheless, most of them are exactly the same, and they should be quite easy to understand in general. So this part also with the project is exactly the same. So you have project name, owner, address, and all the stuff in here. This is just locally in the file in GXSoft. It's not saved inside the module. So please remember that it won't be shared. Only when you are doing export of the configuration and a few notes. On the bottom, you have, again, information about the state of the module, like firmware module, and of course, email and ID. This two information exactly the same as in Perfecta from the previous webinars, and in GSM GPRS modules is giving you a possibility to connect with your mobile application and GXSoft remotely by using SATL server. About it, a little bit later on. Next part is the data. Information about the module, radio, firmware version, etc., etc., and factory settings. So if you change the placement of the GPRS and you want to have a clean device, or something is wrong and you don't know what, and you want to start from the scratch, you can always go there and press factory settings, and then the module is clean. Quite simple. About the hardware, so mainboard part is just information about the module language. We will change it right now to English to be for you a little bit easier. Of course, depending what you describe in here, you can configure as you wish. But for me, always I would use time synchronization with the GSM. Then you don't need to remember to click to set time, and the rest, depending, of course, of your country and of the settings that you like. We'll just save it to module. Of course, you can save it, all the configuration in here. As you see in here, there is a purple or red information that I changed something. This is not saved information. But of course, if I save it, this is the information that is all right now white. So it should be it's the same in the panel right now. About the GSM, so GPRS supports only one SIM card. GSM-X supports two of them, so you will have more options in here, SIM 1 and SIM 2, but in this case we have only one. So of course you need to put PIN if it's required. If not, just clean everything in here. My card doesn't require, so nothing in here. GPRS APN and the username and passwords. If this is information required from your GSM provider, you should take this information from them. It depends. I will show you very fast how to do it. How to find it. So if you go to any kind of web browser, you just put information like GPRS APN P mobile, and for example, I don't know, Germany. And in most cases, this will be the configuration what you have here, but also you will find on the first few, like 5 of them, some kind of information about how to find it, like APN is internet.telecom, for example, etc., etc. It's very easy to find it, but also if you are using many of them, different providers in your country, you can do yourself something like this. This is the spreadsheet with all information about different GSM providers. This is Polish, so for you will be a little bit different. But I see in many cases that most of them right now use internet in general, but of course it depends on your GSM provider. About DNS server, we advise to use Google because we know that they are working fine without any problems. But of course, if you prefer to use different one or your GSM provider blocks for some reason different DNS servers, you can use theirs one. But for sure, we know that Google DNS server works fine for us. It's not, it should be any problem. And then if you configure it, you can set the GPRS enabled. And then you will have a possibility to connect with your GSM provider with the GPRS. If you don't mark this option, you will have only calls like so the GSM calls or SMS, nothing else. No mobile application, no remote connection, nothing like this. Okay. On the right side, you see also the signal strength information. So if it's right now, I have 3 bars, so the signal strength is more than enough. I would strongly advise to have at least 2 bars. I wouldn't install GSM where I have 1 bar, or just try to work with it. So put additional different antenna or change the placement of the GSM. For me, the 2 bars is more than enough and should work fine with the GPRS and GSM. So I will stick with 2 bars, at least 2 bars. But of course, if you can leave it with 1 bar, it's up to you. And if you are using prepaid cards, you can use prepaid support. So the panel will every single day check the balance on the SIM card and then give you information if it's, for example, less than 5 credits. Depending on the country, credit means euro, dollars, whatever you want. So please remember, if €5 is enough for Europe, for example, for rubles, could be not enough to even send an SMS. So please remember that it could be a different amount, depending, of course, of your country. If you are using different types of providers, GSM providers, like especially that one that supports local roaming, so they will switch between the GSM providers inside the same country, or for example, you are on the border with the other country where you have very strong GSM providers from different countries, so with different traffic, you can always use MCC code of one of the providers, your local providers, and then force module to connect only to one. This sometimes could help you issues with when the module is trying to connect with to the strongest GSM provider, and they are two very strong, and they try to connect between them all the time, or when you are on the border and the provider from the different country has stronger signal strength, and module is trying to connect there with the additional costs for the communication. So please remember that you can always manually force module to connect just to one GSM provider that you prefer. Of course, I will advise you always use the one with the strongest signal. All right. So if we have this connected and GPRS enabled, we can go and configure inputs. This is more about configuration of inputs. So GPRS-A, as you know from the yesterday, have 8 inputs. This could be NC, NO, and analog. So you will have a possibility to use them as you like. In this case, I have 2 switches on input 1 and 2, but also I use an analog 5 and 6 input. on the GSM, on the GPRS, is the analog in this case, and I can use it as information. In there, for me to be easier to do it, I use a potentiometer in there, so I can switch the value. As you see in here, it's quite tricky because this is very small potentiometer, but it worked as you see. And I can switch and change them. So in general, guys, you see right now lumen and humidity because I use a scaling. So in a little lower, you have a scaling option. And then you can describe that 0 volts means 0 lumens. And 70 volts give you information about the 1000 lumens. Of course, this depends on the sensor. So if you are using different type of sensor, you can look in the data sheet how the information in this detector is scaling. So it will give you information about if you want to use temperature, that the 0 volts is minus 30, for example, and plus 50 is 16 volts or 12 volts. And you can describe in there how much the scaling is. So in this case, I use a very easy, so 0 is 0 lumen, and of course 70 volts is 1000 lumen. The same goes from humidity, so 0 volts 0, 17 volts means 100 humidity, so you have full information. And this information, you can show it in here, but also on the mobile application if you go through the threshold, for example, and start an alarm. I hope this is quite clear. If you want to use a threshold information in here, you can always use a threshold like 10, and then it will go in the lumens, already using a scaling. So for example, let's do a 100 lumens as the lowest threshold, and the highest threshold we will use, I don't know, 500 lumens. Tolerance I will set to 50. What it means, if in this case, if the input 5 go lower than 100 lumen or higher than 500 lumen, plus minus 50 lumen because of the tolerance, then this zone will be, this input will be triggered. So you will have information. So in this case, if you see the green on the 5, I change the lumen amount, go to lower than. Of course, guys, it helps if you save the information to module, then module will know that he need to look on the thresholds. This helps in many cases. So let's try it again. So if I go lower than 100, and you see the input 5 is right now on the green, so it's violated. The same goes to the top. If I go in the middle somewhere, as you 400, it's come back to normal, and of course go up more than 500 plus minus tolerance give you a violation. Please remember that if you go, I will try to do it in the middle somewhere. As you see, all the sensors, depending of course on the quality of the sensor, they will a little bit fluctuate. As you see right now, I don't touch a potentiometer, but you will see that the humidity and luminance a little bit jumping up and down. This is why we are using tolerance, just to not trigger zone many times, like all the time. Quite simple. Yeah, and of course, if you want to change the luminance to something else, you just put in here information like this, and right now they are amperes or whatever you want to put in there, to be honest. I hope this is quite easy for you guys and you understand the idea of it. Of course, you have functionality to block the this input, if you, for example, receive this information and then you want to block it because you know that's already through the threshold and you don't want to have all the notifications still going on, etc., etc., you have all the possibilities. But I hope this is quite clear how to use this functionality as the analog sensor. Please remember that the scaling that we are using is described inside a data sheet of the sensor. The producer of the sensors should give you information how the scaling is done and what the value of information from the sensor gives what type of value of amperes, humidity, or whatever you want to use. Okay. And my colleague said, right, it's not 17 exactly, it's 16.56 volts. So yeah, but just to make it a little bit easier, okay? And of course you can block. So if, for example, if I trigger input 1, I want to block input 5 and 6, for example, as you like. Okay, so you can do it with the, for example, button on the wall. So this is about the normal detectors and, of course, analog ones with the scaling. I hope this is quite clear and quite easy for you guys to understand. Righty. So next part is one-wire sensor. One-wire sensor are temperature sensor for now, and you connect them to our module. And then to be able, because this is one wire, so you can connect them together. And if you want to identify them, you just put identify sensor. The module will read information what devices are connected. I have 2 temperature sensors in there. And if I save this information to module, you will see that the value of the temperature is right now 25.5 or 25.75, because I think this is a little bit closer to transformer. But if I start to increase the temperature of the sensor, I hope I will be able to do it by my finger. You see that the temperature already is increasing in the sensor too, 30 degrees already. So this is information from the module. And of course, you can use a threshold for it, low and high. So higher temperature or lower temperature, then the zone is violated. And tolerance for the detector not to be triggering many times when you are exactly on the threshold. And of course, correction. Correction is used if you, for example, have a temperature sensor that doesn't exactly give you the proper value of the temperature, like or it's somehow it's not exactly right with the temperature, or for example, you are using it very, very high, close to ceiling, or very, very low, or very close to the floor, and you know the temperature of the ceiling is always higher by 2, for example, by 2 temperature to Celsius. So, for example, you can do something like this, and then it will always take 2 Celsius from the temperature of the sensor in general, at least in a few seconds. Exactly as you see in here. So please remember that you can work with the correction also to solve all the information of the placement of the detector, or if the detector giving you wrong reading and a little bit misleading your information. Okay, I think this is quite clear and quite easy. And then you can use this information to trigger something like, for example, outputs. So in here we have next part is the outputs. So you have 4 different outputs. You can trigger them remotely by pressing this button. As you see in here right now, I'm playing with them. But also you can trigger them by using inputs and temperature sensors. So right now you will see that, for example, if the input 5 is, give me 1 second, I will check one thing in the diagram, not to turn on the panel. Output 4, 3 and 4, okay. So right now I will turn off 3 and 4. So if the input 5 give you information about low, I want to trigger output 4. Let's say output 3. And if high, I want to trigger output 4. Quite easy. Let's save it. So if right now I change the value of the input to be higher than 5, you see output 4 is already on. But if I go in the middle, it will turn off. So I'm right now around between 100 and 500. Let's check it. Yes, we are at 300 right now. So it's turned off. And of course, if I go even lower to 0, output 3 turned on because I see that it's triggered in here. For now, don't look at the output 6. It is input 6 for this case. Okay. This is how you control the type of output by the inputs inside the GSM module. Quite simple. Okay. In addition, you have also a few other options in here that you can trigger and how they should react. For example, if they are poles or you want them to trigger information that there is a problem with the GSM. If you, for example, want to send this information back to panel, if there is a GSM trouble, you can use an output from the GSM and connect it to panel in this case. All right, the same goes, of course, for the sensors, and you can, the one-wire sensor, and then you can set how they should react, depending what you prefer to do it. I think this is quite clear and quite easy. Okay, so this is how to configure inputs, how to configure outputs. Yeah, so one more thing about the inputs that I skipped on purpose, but I want to go back in here. You will see that we have also AC. There is an input AC that you can turn on, and you need to connect it to AC from the transformer in your transformer of the panel. So if there is a lack of 230 volts, the module is able to recognize it and send proper information or trigger notification or do whatever you want to have a full information that there is a missing AC as the additional information. Okay. So this part was about inputs, outputs, one-wire sensors, and analog sensors in general. So this should be quite important for you as the information what is happening on site with the module. Okay, let's go to the functions. So in the functions, we have every other options that wasn't related to zones, to inputs, to outputs of the module. And of course, there will be a few other. So communication. This is options regarding communication with module. So you have all the information about the module, but also SATL server. So if you want to use mobile application and connect remotely to it by using SATL server, or you want to use the GX soft for this type of communication and connect remotely, you can use you should mark this option. So connect to GX control, GX soft, and push notification. What I would advise if you want to use remote access, just mark 3 of them, save to the panel, and then you can use IME and ID to be able to connect with the module remotely without any other problems. Of course, if you don't want to use SATL server for some reason, you can always do a direct connection to GXSoft. So you can use a server address you can put in here and connect, and you put a SMS command to start this communication. So you first of all prepare your PC to be able to receive this information, send SMS with the command, and then GPRS-A or GSM-X remotely connect to your PC. Of course, for this, you will need a public IP address, and in many cases, port forwarding, etc., on the port that you described in here. But nevertheless, you are able to do it directly from the GPRS GSM unit to your PC. But I will strongly advise to use SATL server. It's easier, just 2 clicks and you're connected, so it should be enough. Okay. About SATL server still, if you want to connect your mobile application, you just go with the same idea with the INT GSM, with the Perfecta. You just go to project, click on this icon, and for example, use this code, QR code with your mobile application. So right now I'll show you a mobile application GX Control. It looks like this. You can download it from Google Store or Apple, and works on both platforms. So you can go in top, add new device, read QR code, scan it, put a password that is in here, the key in here. So 121212. Okay. Put your user telephone number. This is information that is stored in here, like 001. And then you should be able to be connected to this module. Of course, first connection always will be a little bit longer because it will download information from the panel, from the module. So all the names, all the configuration, etc. And as you see in here, you have full information what is happening on site, about the outputs, about the zones that are triggered, etc. I hope you see it. Details are not exactly most important in this case, but I think the idea that you see what is there and how to configure it, it should be fine. Of course, if I change the value of the, here you see also almost in the same time information in the software, in the application, that the amperes are changing. So this is quite easy and quite fast to use it. The same goes with the GSM-X, and of course with the Perfecta panel also, and Integra with the INT GSM. Okay, so this is one part. Station simulation. Okay, guys, so we talk about if you use this module as a standalone to use inputs and outputs, so you can do many interesting things with the analog and temperature sensors. In this case, you can also, with the GPRS and GSM-X, you can always connect with the panel by the PSTN line. So it means between the panel and the GSM GPRS unit, there is a tip ring connection, so PSTN line. So old or older security systems still have on board PSTN line modem or analog modem, and then you can use this information to be able to send information to GPRS GSM unit. But please remember that gives you not only information about something happened, but also in many cases, if you are using contact ID, for example, information about which zone or which user, so more details about the event. In this case, you can do a station simulation, so the GPRS will react as the monitoring station. So in this case, we start this functionality. I will use an events buffer because it helps you to, if there is more information, will buffer them. And then you configure it. So I will receive information in contact ID. I can obtain identifier automatically, so I don't need to put my ID in the device. It will be taken from a panel. And station telephone number, I will use something easy, like 4 ones. What it gives me. In the Deload X, I will show you this functionality on the panel Integra. In the reporting, so in the monitoring station reporting, I will use reporting telephone. I will use only station 1 to just connect just to one station. And I will configure contact ID, full telephone number for ones that we described in here, in this place. And I set some kind of identifiers that I should receive from my monitoring station, like something like this. And the same goes to system information. And to be honest, I'm ready to go. So it means reporting for station 1, contact ID full, so it will send every single information from the panel to GPRS, and then telephone number, so for once in here, and then identifier, because it needs to send in some kind of identifier. If I save it in the panel and save it in the GSM module will try to receive this information on the line from the panel. Of course, if you are using third-party company panels, security panels, you configure it more or less the same way, but of course, different software, different, maybe a little bit different names, but in general, the names should be exactly the same. Should be quite easy. So if you have this configured, and GPRS is able to right now to receive information from the panel, we can use this information right now to do something with it. For example, to send this information further to monitoring station. So then we configure the reporting in the GPRS or GSM. So we mark this option, send it to station, for example, only 1, and module identifier. In this case, it doesn't matter because we use that it should automatically take from the panel, but of course we can use differently or the same. And what type IP format we want to use, let's say CIP, TCP/IP, and put some kind of IP address server or some kind of server and port information that we should receive from a monitoring station. And then we need to configure rest of the configuration if it's required. And quite important part is reporting priority, because GPRS-A and GSM-X have even more possibilities to send different types of information to monitoring station. You can choose different type of options. So first, for example, GPRS is able to send GPRS and SIM and SMS. So you are able to send this information. So let's start it with the GPRS, and if the GPRS is not there, then send by the SMS. So in this way, configuration, right now we said that we send information by the GPRS and then SMS, but we sadly didn't configure it. SMS telephone number of the monitoring station, and right now, module, every single time when it received the reporting from the panel, will try to send the same information to monitoring station, first of all by the GPRS and then by the SMS. In the GSM-X, you have a little more possibilities because you have GPRS, you have SMS, you have clip, and you have by the ETHM. And all of this by different SIM cards, SIM card 1, SIM card 2. So for example, first of all, SIM card 1 GPRS, then SIM card 2 GPRS, then SIM card 1's SMS, etc., etc., etc. So this is the configuration, and rest of it, of course, it's more about information what is happening inside the GSM GPRS unit, not from the monitor from the panel side. So if you want to send, for example, if there is a GSM trouble and restore, you can send this also information. Of course, if you want to send information to monitoring station about the status of the zone, of the input, etc., or for example, analog, and you can choose what type of information you want to send, you have full list in here for the monitoring station. But in general, if you are using with with a different panel, you will use something like this. Okay, this was about reporting. I will disable it. Let's go to messaging. So messaging is more about the information that will go to your end user about the status of the module. If you want to use a push notification, this is very, very important with the very, very important part for you guys. If you want to use a push notification, you need to mark messaging. You don't need to configure rest of it. You need to configure messaging, because push notification is also part of messaging, okay? And of course, if you want to receive information about them, SMS messages or push notification from, for example, triggering input or output, then you need to configure in here. S means SMS, clip means clip, or SMS and clip. And of course, then you will also receive as the push notification the violation of the input. In here, you can also change the name of it. For example, temperature is too high. But this will be only one information. If you want a little more, how high the temperature is, add analog value from the input. And this will give you information not in volts if you are using scaling, but it will use values that you want, that you describe, like humidity, temperature, whatever you want. Okay, and this information will be sent in as the notification as the SMS, clip, and push. Alrighty, and of course you have also information about the one-wire sensor, about the values in there, or sensor, how high or low, depending what you configure it in here. In addition, you have also the possibility to use clip messaging. So if you set C, then it will try to call if 3 times. If user don't acknowledge it is just turning off. So you disconnect the telephone, or you pick up the phone. So you did something with the phone, not just leave it. Then you have notification. If not, if you don't use it, then send SMS if no confirmation. Quite simple. Of course, there is a DTMF, so you need to press some digits, then you will have information in there that the user picked up the phone. Okay? Alrighty. So this is a messaging more from the GPRS, but we want to use information that comes from the panel, from the station simulation. So the event converter, and we can start it that if we receive reporting from something from this identifier, from contact ID, and we choose what for example, from this event log, from this event, then we can set the push notification, like alarm, and message inside, etc., and what telephone number. This T1 to T8, this is a telephone number that you describe in users, as you see in here. In many cases, as the installer, you can do, for example, that the users will be first 7 and you as the installer will be user 8 to receive only, for example, only troubles from the system. And then you can react as the end, same way almost as the end user. You will receive the same information. And you can configure up to 32, as I remember. Yes, 32 different information from the event log as the notification. Is this quite? I hope this is quite clear and quite easy. So to summarize the conversion, first of all, you configure station simulation. If you want to report it to monitoring station, then you report it monitoring station and configure reporting. If you want to send from this information from the panel, you are using event converter. And of course, if you want to send messaging about the status of the GPRS or GSM module to end user, you are using messaging. Also includes push notification, so you need to mark this option also. Okay, this is the summary, this part up. Of course, from yesterday, you also know that you can control module remotely. So you can use a GX application for it, so GX control. You can use a GX soft for the controlling outputs, inputs, etc. But also you can use SMS for it. So, for example, you have option turn on output 1 if you send SMS with the command or gate, for example. So if the SMS is gate, the command in SMS is gate, then the output 1 will turn on. Please remember, if you are using it, for example, for the gates, where as the default in many cases they want not a status on, they want impulse, for example, for 1 second. Then on the outputs you configure that the operating time will be 1 second, and then in the SMS control you slide down and turn on for time output 1, and in here should be gate. Because if you are using turn on, it will just change status to on and leave it like this. Then it will open gate only once and state on, so you can't turn on something that is already on. If you want just an impulse, then turn on for time output 1. This is quite a common mistake in many cases, so please just take this in consideration. And of course, you shouldn't use this type of information. Something like this. Messages as the SMS shouldn't include each other. So if the gate and gate turn on, gate is inside the gate turn on, it means that module could react only for the gate, not on for this command. So they shouldn't be including each other fully inside. So just a quick tip for you guys to not mess the configuration in general. Okay, I hope this is quite clear. And of course, if you want to, you can use confirm control by sending SMS. So if you send a command, you will receive SMS with the test information transmission that you trigger the command. Clip control, the same way. So you call the panel and then the output, for example, 1 will open for time. So if user 1 call, then gate will open for 1 second. The output will trigger for 1 second, so gate open. Of course, if you want to give this possibility to everyone, you do any telephone, and then everyone will be able to call the module, and then gate will open. Of course, you can add additional telephone number. So if, for example, you have a company and you want to give only employees possibility to use it, and there are more than 8 of them, then you can use, of course, up to 1024 different telephone numbers, and they will be somehow restricted inside the inside the controlling the app. Of course, you can use remote update as the same AppServe software that we described yesterday and with the Perfecta. So you can use a remote update in here and configure it. And if you want to use Internet of Things, in here you have full configuration about it. We won't go through it because it will take too much time to configure it. But if you know how to set server for MQTT or any other, for sure this configuration will be quite easy. In general, you just put a server and port and fill all the information that is required here. This should be quite easy and without any additional explanation. If you know how to set a server, this should be quite easy and nice. I know that for the server, you can use something that is, I think it's Red Node. I will show you on the website. If you want to start with something, you can try Node Red, sec.org, and try to work, at least start to use something like this. For you guys to just, and there, from what I know, there is a lot of not webinars, but technical information and documentation, how to start it, how to work with the Node Red, and then use it in general, how to install it and configure it. So it shouldn't be a big problem for you to start up with this. But of course, this is a little bit something different than GPRS just by itself. It's combining many other products from different companies. Users, as we described before, the telephone number, if you want to use it to connect to the module, but also the notification. Forward SMS is the option that every single SMS that is not set as the control of the GPRS or GSM unit will be sent to you, to this telephone number. It means that in 99%, it will be some kind of marketing SMS, like new account, something new that your GSM provider wants you to buy. But in few cases, especially with the cards that has some kind of limits of the data transfer or limits of the prepaid card, then you will also receive information if that, for example, you have not enough money in there, or you are very close to end to use all your traffic data, etc., etc. So you are able to receive also the quite important information from there. But in general, this is more and more like marketing stuff for you to buy something. And of course, at the end, we have events. So all the options in here, what is happening in this case, because I use this module as the test one. So you have, as you see, all the information, what is happening, and GX control connections, etc., etc., about what's happening with the site. If you are using some kind of reporting, you will also you receive information here about the reporting on the channel 1, etc., etc. Okay, guys, this is all about the GPRS-A and most of the GSM-X. Right now, we very fast go to GSM-X to show you a few differences between them. So I hope this will be quite clear for you. One more thing that I want to show you, if you want to use a template of your configuration, for example, you are using a world SIM like CSL or any other, and you have you already prepared configuration for it, you can just use, if you change the name for anything else, you can save it and save as, and then save it is the different configuration as the template and send it to a module. This could speed up your configuration of the new modules, especially if you are using your colleagues to install them on site. Alrighty, so right now I disconnect and we go to GSM. Yep, and we go to GSM-X. Give me 1 second, I will try to connect, or no, we skip the connection. So few difference between them. As you see on the main board, it's almost the same, a little bit different configuration because you have different speed rates. If you want to connect with the panel, because you can connect with the Integra panel and use RS-232 as the communication between the modules. But in general, I will always advise to use INT GSM with Integra panel, but still there is a possibility. In the GSM, as you see, and as described before, you have SIM card 1 and SIM card 2, because GSM-X supports 2 SIM cards, and then exactly the same for 2 SIM cards here. As I described yesterday, you can use GSM-X ETH and PSTN line, so you need to configure them in here. So you can set a static IP address, etc. for this connection. And inputs are less because there is no analog in there. One more thing that I didn't, I think, describe yesterday. Please remember that GSM-X and GSM-X LTE, the difference is not only in module, but also in the amount of inputs. GSM-X LTE have 8 of them as the inputs, and GSM-X has only 4 of them. Something to clear this up. And the outputs works exactly the same, so you have also this options for it, the same as the GPRS-A, a little more because you have also ETH and PSTN line trouble in there. And the functions works almost exactly the same, so you have all the information in here about how they work. GSM gateway, because GSM-X give you a possibility to use an analog telephone line, so not only analog but also voice line. So you have configuration about the voice line and how to use it. Simulation station reporting is almost the same way. With the reporting priority, as you see, there is a more path because again, GSM-X give you more possibilities because you have ETHM and for, of course, SIM card 1, SIM card 2 that I described previously in audio, in addition to what we have in the GPRS-A, and talk about it. Messaging looks almost the same, but also GSM-X give you possibility to store voice messages inside. So you can use a text-to-wave, so a synthesizer for it, but also you can just send a wave from your PC in there, and a few other options regarding the same way as we described in the GPRS, how it should react on the clip, etc., to different users. Event converter works exactly the same. SMS DTMF control, because we have a voice line in there, so we can not only use SMS command, but we can call module and, for example, use numbers. So like if I press 5488, then I can control something inside the system. Exactly the same goes for all the other options in here. Clip control, the same idea as the GPRS-A. Data forwarding, this is something that is used when you connect Integra panel with RS-232 with the module GSM-X, then you are able to remotely access your panel. But still, again, I will advise you to use INT GSM and remote updates. So this goes the same way as the Upserve server. Users, exactly the same, and event log of what happened in there. So there are a few differences between the GPRS-A and GSM-X about the configuration because of the possibilities from the GPRS-A about the analog inputs, one-wire sensor, and other stuff like this. and IoT. On the GSM-X, telephone line, PSTN telephone line and voice line by the GSM, and the priority and ETH module on sandwich. So there is a few differences, but of course the configuration more or less should look exactly the same. Okay, this part we are already almost no time for it, but I want to talk about a little bit about INT GSM. So if you connect INT GSM with the module to the panel, you will see something like this or similar to it, where you configure the same thing as in the that we are talking about GPRS-A and the GPRS APM the same way. The prepaid support, so the same possibilities if you are using prepaid, and of course SMS messaging and clip control. Let's spread it out. So if you put a telephone number in here and put a user like master turned on, then you can receive information from partition 1 and 2, alarms, arms, system, and troubles, for example. So this gives you possibilities about messaging, SMS and clip messaging. Of course, if you use a C, then you will receive a call. S plus C is SMS and clip. Sorry, not control, clip. So this is about the messaging in very few words. There is a limit. So for example, if you want to limit up to 50 SMS messages per 24 hours, then you have a possibility to limit this amount of SMS. In the function about the clip control, so you can choose a function 1. So if user 1 from this telephone will call module INT GSM, then function 1 will be turned on. Function 1 is in the SMS control. So function 1 is the first one in here, and you choose what it should do. For example, switch output on, and I choose one of the outputs that I want to configure, for example, to open the gate. And of course, I can use an option any telephone number. This is for the SMS control, etc. So this is how you configure the clip. Of course, if you want to unknown number, so everyone, not from the list, you can use the same way. So this part, and anyone can call, and output 5 will trigger. Of course, for this, you will need to use output that is able to control. So the type of mono switch, B switch, or some kind of where it was shutter up, shutter down that you can control. If you are using, for example, burglary, it won't trigger because burglary is you are not able to control. In this case, because we know that this is a garage door control, I want to change the time for it for 2 seconds. So every single time when someone calls, output 5 will turn on for 2 seconds. Simple and easy to configure. About the SMS control, if we want to use SMS, the same way. So gate, then it will open. Then it will open the door, so trigger output 5. If we want to use reporting, then we can add that, for example, ETHM will be first, and then GPRS will be second on the first SIM, etc. The same idea as we spoke with the GPRS-A and GSM-X, and of course, remote update of by Upserve software. After you configure it, please remember that you need to press a button right on the bottom, because all the information is stored inside the INT GSM module, and then you will be able to use information about the options in here. Of course, if you want to use connection via SATL server and push notification, you need to mark these 2 options here, and then you will be able to use this functionality. Okay, guys, this is a few things that I tried to show you as fast as possible, because we don't have we already passed the time that we have. We still try to spend 5 minutes for most important question from your side. So if you have any kind of questions, go ahead. I see there was a lot of them, but we just take few of them and try to explain them. One more thing to explain this part is also that this is INT GSM connected to ETHM, but the configuration is just INT GSM alone will be almost the same. You will just see this screen, nothing else. Okay, guys. To wrap it up, let's go. Okay, let's go to questions. Okay, what is the part number of the communication cable? My colleague, I think, answered already this question. I don't think that we have a part number because it depends, of course, on you. But I will pin this information on our web on the chat. To link to the product is called USB-RS converter. So you can use it, you can choose from it. Okay, next question. Can I connect GXsoft to GSM-X GPRS-A when using private APN SIM card with no internet access? Okay, with no internet access. So if you don't have internet access, you won't be able to connect remotely because you don't have internet access. But if your PC or your telephone is in the same private APN, so you are using the same connection, I think you should be able to connect the same way as the internet access, but of course without internet. It will be local APN access. Then I think yes, but of course then you will need to use a direct connection. You won't be able to use SATA server connection because SATA server works in the internet. So yeah, so only direct connection. But I think yes, you will be able to do it. Okay, next question. Can we use current for 20 milliamperes? To be honest, I'm not sure because the sensors are not working on the milliamperes as the power supply because it should be working fine. It works on voltage measurement. But of course, I understand that there's some sensors trying to take some power supply from it. To be honest, I'm not sure what is the limit of the current that you can use with the sensor. I will need to check it. Please go to our info.subtle.pl website and put a ticket in there, create a ticket in there with these questions, and we will try to answer you because from my head, I don't have information what current sensor could take. We know that we measure it by the voltage measurement, but I don't have any information about the current that the sensor can take. So please go to info.subtle.pl and ask there a question. We will try to answer it. Okay, next one. This is amount of the, as I remember, of the size of the event log, so up to 500 events. So it will buffer up to 500 events inside the buffer and then try to send them back to monitoring station. Okay, sorry guys, but we don't have too much time anymore. We need to wrap it up. Again, if you want some more information, go to info.satel.pl and create a ticket. We will try to answer you for you. Thank you very much for your time. In next 2 weeks, there will be for sure about the ABAX 2 in EN, so in English, but also it will be INTTSI. So there will be a lot of interesting information there. Again, it will be 2 days of the webinar, so 2 parts of it. Thank you very much for your time, guys. You're really, really nice. It was, as always, pleasure to talk with you. I hope to meet you in the real person on the trainings, like face-to-face trainings, and then I will try to bring with me some kind of nice stuff for you guys. But nevertheless, please try to stay safe, better at home, and yeah, have a nice day. Thank you very much, guys, and thank you, Łukasz, for help with all the chat. Big shout out for Łukasz Woźniak that helped me with all the chat and questions. Okay, guys, see you. Thank you. Bye-bye.